You will get more results and better results from less. What is physical stress?
Like, oh, I go to the gym to de-stress, and it's like, yeah, but you're putting your body under stress.
If that's the only tool that you have, you're going to probably need to have more tools in your toolbox. All training is not equal. You are never going to stretch your way out of overdoing too much total training. We've said like training deloads. So essentially what that is, it's a planned break from training. Actually just being fitter. Having a high level of aerobic fitness will improve your recovery. Doing nothing is really important.
This is the Future Fitness Lifestyle, the podcast for high achievers who want to take control of their long-term physical and mental well-being. I'm Matt Cooney, and every week we break down the habits, mindset, and strategies to build lasting health, energy, and strength without sacrificing your career, family, or lifestyle. No quick fixes, no fads, just real sustainable results.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Future Fitness Lifestyle. And today I am just joined by Roisin and Eve. It's the first time we've had three people on the podcast. I think we're all a little scared, are we? I am anyway, with the two O'Keefes.
I'm
Are
just
you
going
going
to
to
stay
gang up
quiet.
and bully? Yeah, you're going to gang up and bully me, are you? Either
Speaking
that
of
or
physical
you're just
stress,
going to let either that or you're just going to let me talk, and then you'll probably have to cut me off at some point. So, how are we all feeling today, Roisin and Eve? Let me know.
I'm still feeling a little sleepy because I'm up early here. But other than that, good.
And
I'm
Eve?
sleepy too, but I'm at the other end of the.
Yeah, it's funny because we're going to talk about physical stress, and me and Eve just finished training legs 20 minutes ago, maybe. So it's a good. We're literally an example of stress, physical stress right now. So if Eve falls asleep while we're doing this podcast, that's just what happens after a tough leg day.
And I'm in the middle of a deload week, so I'm doing the recovery side of things.
You're on the other end. I think
Yeah.
me and Eve are probably we're going towards where you are, whether we like it or not. We are.
This is the calm before
So
the storm for me.
yeah. So yeah, today we're going to talk about physical stress. So we've already discussed a lot about stress, what it is, how it affects the body. We looked at mental and emotional stressors. Today we're going to look at physical stress. So firstly, what is physical stress? It's any strain or demand that's placed on your body that then requires it to adapt and respond. So I think when we talk about physical stress, it's probably the one that people will relate to the most, or it's in a way it's kind of like simple to know that you're physically stressed. Like if you're tired, if you're sore, you kind of feel it, versus like we talked about with emotional stress, mental stress, sometimes we don't really know that how much that's impacting us, or even if we are, I talk to a lot of people that are like, what is that? So when we talk about physical stress here, we're looking at things overtraining, under recovering, and maybe under fueling. So, which is kind of linked in with that overtraining or under recovering. And then also, it's just an accumulation of training over time, which causes fatigue. So it's really important because sometimes people will, if you get under high amounts of physical stress, you can feel like oh, I must be doing something wrong, but you're actually not. It's just the body giving you these signals. And especially if you train hard and you're training towards a goal, whether that's muscle growth or fitness, whatever it is, over time, that stress accumulates. So it's really important to understand that and know that you're not doing anything wrong. It's part of the process of actually improving, is putting your body under physical stress. It again comes back really to the amount of stress and our ability to actually recover from it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Eve, you have to recover from leg day right now. This is part of it. So when I kind of talk about some of the symptoms of physical stress, what comes to mind for you guys?
You mean kind of like signs that you're kind of maybe pushing yourself in training and you're not kind of recovering?
Yeah. If I was going to say, okay, what's some of the
Yeah.
symptoms of physical?
I definitely would think some of the main ones of physical stress, like there's like probably hundreds, but the like most common ones would be like, obviously lower energy, excessive soreness. I know for myself, like if I've been really pushing hard, I'll kind of get a different kind of soreness. It's not just like DOMS, it's nearly like your joints and your bones are nearly kind of aching. Even things like just doing movements and just feeling like you're going to injure yourself. You feel really kind of
Niggles.
yeah, niggles. I just feel more prone to like hurting myself. Things like disrupted sleep. Some other ones then will be, for me, a big one is I get like really irritable. So like little things can just drive me insane.
Really?
Yeah.
Like anything I do.
Yeah.
Like me breathing drives you insane.
Yeah. The sound of you breathing. But yeah, there's some of the big ones.
Another
Then
one,
there's
like getting sick when your body,
Yeah,
and I know that with a few people that would like, you know, they even go to the gym and they might push themselves even extra hard in the gym, and then they come away and they're after they've gotten sick because their body is just like, what are you doing to me?
Yeah,
You're
Like,
already like
I'm gonna
things.
put you out because you won't listen.
yeah. And that's where the kind of overtraining part comes in. Essentially, when we look at like overtraining, it's just too much stress and the body is not able to recover. And then when we look at like under recovering is kind of the same thing, but or even under fueling, it just means for a lot of people, like you see this very common with athletes, even endurance athletes, they won't actually eat enough or they won't fuel their bodies enough, which means they just can't recover from. So it's kind of like they they all mean different things, but they bring you to the same place of just not being able to recover. And you guys said it there with a lot of the symptoms of physical stress. There's tons, and some of them are obvious when you have that soreness or niggles, injuries, bit of pain. Like you feel, you can feel that when, and like even Eve said, when you wake up sometimes in the morning, and it's just like, oh, can't, everything hurts. But then there's some other ones that people sometimes don't really know that can be a symptom of high amounts of physical stress. So just to run through a few of them, even the ones we've covered, persistent fatigue and low energy definitely is one. The key word there is persistent. Like we will always have days where your energy is a bit lower. You get fatigued, even as the day goes on, you get fatigued as the end of the week, most people are. But when it's a constant, and I always look at it like if you look at yourself like a battery, if your battery is constantly going down and it's never going back up, that's a sign, and it's like that can go on for weeks. And I've definitely experienced that sometimes, that it's like it's not this big huge dip in energy, it's just like a slight dip all the time, and then you kind of you get to a point you're like, geez, the last few weeks have, it's not even just like I'm low energy, I'm like the last few weeks have gone by and I'm still kind of struggling here. And
You
then
kind
you
of
get
nearly
excessive.
you
Sorry,
get
go
to a
ahead.
point of being like overtired then as well. So like a lot of people might be like tired, but like at nighttime, then they're nearly wired, like they can't fall asleep.
Yeah,
That's a big one as well.
and that actually is part, yeah, causes that disrupted sleep. And then we have that excessive soreness. So soreness is part of training, and putting your body under physical stress. But often you'll notice that you get way sorer from like the same thing. And again, that's just a sign your body's just not recovering to the same degree it was. Like you guys said, injuries, niggles, sicknesses. I think a lot of people forget that about sickness and like the immune system, how it is linked to physical stress. And a good example here is nearly any person who does an extreme physical event, so take a bodybuilding show or a marathon, at some point in their prep, they're going to get sick. I could almost guarantee it. And I can't try to remember, do I remember anyone that didn't, that has done a bodybuilding show or like a marathon? And because again, the more extreme you go with anything, the more the body has to essentially recover, and especially when you're talking running those distances or getting to that level of body fat. And then kind of tied in with that with the gym is like something that I often pick up on with clients is a low motivation to train. And especially for people that love to train, that a lot of people, they don't need to be motivated to train. They love it. But then they get to this like And you see it sometimes even with people, they nearly feel like they're in a rut. They're like training it just doesn't feel good for the last, week, 2 weeks. And it can be continuous with people. So that's definitely another one to look out for.
That's probably one of the biggest ones that I see with clients as well. Clients that are so consistent, love the gym, and then they just go through this period of, I'm just like, I actually hate the gym. I just don't want to be in there. And I'm like, that is like the number one sign.
Yeah, it even happens. People listening to this probably think it doesn't happen to me, but I get that definitely a couple times a year, when I am training quite hard or get to that point.
The last, I know what podcast it was, we were talking about motivation, whatever podcast that was. And I was like, I'm always motivated. I love the gym because I do love the gym. And it was like, I jinxed myself because that week I was like, oh my God, there's nowhere I just, because I think I hadn't taken a deload in so long and I was loving the gym, that all of a sudden it was just like, this is the worst place on earth. I just had no motivation for it.
We jinxed you, and we were all. I think we were all low motivation. You were the only one.
Yeah.
That's their energy vampires in the environment. We just had to drag you down.
Yeah, fuckers.
So another couple of ones: increased inflammation. Again, that whole bloated, swelling. Think of again when you break down muscle fibers. Part of that response is an inflammatory response, but you can have just an overall increase in that, and might have noticed it before when you're training really hard. Then sometimes it's like, again, if you have more soreness, your body even feels and looks like it's just inflamed, and that can also lead to being run down. Then another one is increased resting heart rate. So if you find that your resting heart rate is up probably 5 to 10 beats consistently, that's a sign that your body is more sympathetic dominant, so you're in that fight or flight mode. And then another couple of ones that I see a lot that as well people might not realize. One is not having the ability to focus or feeling like mentally drained. So not being able to actually focus on one task. And this is one I notice myself is like when I'm physically tired, my ability to actually stay focused and not get distracted and not scroll social media, all that stuff, it becomes a lot harder. And the last two are digestive issues and appetite dysregulation. So that I think is a big one that people don't realize. And even with digestive issues, a good example is like runner's gut is what we talked about. Because again, a lot of people when they do those endurance events, especially if they're consuming food throughout it, they find it quite difficult to do that because again the body is under a lot of stress, physical stress while they're running 20-30K, and so digestion can definitely be impaired. And with appetite, I actually find myself my appetite actually goes down when I'm under when I know I'm physically stressed. I know I don't really have an interest in food. I usually would, which is actually one of the signs that I look out for a lot personally.
Yeah, I think the opposite end of that as well for a lot of people would be they might notice they're just feeling a lot hungrier and just increasing cravings, or just maybe not able to eat as mindfully as they normally would have as well.
Yeah. And so obviously I don't know how many symptoms we put. There's definitely, 10 to 15 was it we went through there? And so I think it's important to understand is you're probably looking for a collection of these out of that 15. That's something that I probably look at is go, okay, how many of these do I actually have? Because it's usually you'll have a few at a time consistently. That's what you might, or that's what you'll see or know, because just one of them probably, if you just have a low motivation to train, that might not be a sign of physical. But if that's combined with your niggles, you can't sleep, your appetite is off, you're doing lots of actual training, then you might go, yeah, I think I'm under high amounts of physical stress.
I think it's also important because I know from even talking to people that a lot of people don't realize that working out and going to the gym puts your body in a good way, it puts your body under stress in order to build the muscles. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I go to the gym to de-stress. And it's like, yeah, but you're putting your body under stress. So it could be a reason why your body's not recovering.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone assumes stress was just negative. like it's bad. It's always bad when it's not.
Yeah. And it's something that I'll always see people, yeah, like we want people to use training as stress management. Like it does help to a degree. But again, if you're doing a marathon every day, like that's not helping your stress. That is like everything is like dangerous in the dose. And if the only thing you have to manage your stress is training, which is a physical stress, yeah, eventually that's gonna run out. It's like if that's the only tool that you have, you're gonna probably need to have more tools in your toolbox.
Yeah, you definitely
That's
need like activities as well that are a lot more restorative and help you relax and switch off, not just like training or, any type of exercise, whether it's running, going to the gym, classes or whatever.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to go through is kind of different techniques to help manage physical stress. And I think, Roisin, just another point on what you said as well is a lot of people, I definitely probably come from this background as well. It's like they're not really aware of the physical stress, or they try and just like get on with it. I know I was that, like I would have been someone who overtrained. And so I actually didn't listen to my body. I was just like, keep going. This is the plan. Do this. Yeah, it's because I even remember at one point in my training career, I used to have to do about 40 minutes of a warm up and mobility before I could like go to the gym, like lift. And looking back now, I'm like, took me that long to get to a point where I could just do my weight session.
Yeah.
That's just me. I was just overtrained at that time. Whereas now, like 3 5 minute warm up and I'm good to go. But it's funny. It's just like I think everyone has that more is better and just do more.
Yeah. But I think also it's because a lot of us are constantly in like a high state of fight or flight or something, that our body is like, oh, this high stress is your normal. And so you're not even aware half the time that you are like above the stress level. So your everyday is already on like a level of stress. And it's once you get that awareness and bring yourself down. I remember when I was like, holy hell, was I feeling like that all the time? That was not good.
Yeah. That's where, before we go into the techniques, that's what I want to kind of go through is first explain something called the SRA curve, which is essentially stimulus response adaptation. So like I was saying, what actual physical stress is basically you put the body under some form of demand, stress, training, etc. Essentially what it is. After that, it has to recover and then it has to adapt. So if you think of it, it's like this curve. You'll have your baseline stress level and you'll be down here. So me and Eve went and trained legs there. So that's a stress. That's going to put our stress way up here. And now what the body has to do is now start to recover from that stress and bring it back down to this baseline so that then we can adapt to it. So then the next time, let's say we do that, we put ourselves under that stress, it doesn't go up as high, or we can recover quicker. And that's the way the actual thing. It's this constant, like we put ourselves under stress, our baseline stress goes up, our body's job then is to bring it back down. And what tends to happen, which is like we're saying, the accumulation stress, it's like over time we may not be fully recovering. So let's say you do a session, me and Eve done legs. In 2 days' time, let's say we're recovered, but we're actually only 90% recovered. And then we do another session. And then we do another session. And then we go from 90 to like 85, 80. So we're slowly over time not recovering. And then that's where you get to that point 4, 6, 8 weeks down the line where you're just like, I can't, I can't move. It doesn't come over one session. Sometimes it can if people just go, if you go run a marathon off the couch, that's gonna put you out for a while. But that's actually the process we're kind of going through, and it's important to understand that's how the whole training and getting better works. Like essentially, if you're trying to build muscle, you put those muscles under stress, the body then recovers, repairs them, and grows bigger. And then the adaptation is you're now stronger, you now have bigger muscles. Same if you go and run, do whatever it is, obviously that's stress on the stress in your joints and stuff, but you're stressing your cardiovascular system. which then has to recover, and then it adapts. So then it gets better. So that's why, when you get up off the couch and do a 5K, it might kill you. But then if you do that every day for 30 days or consistently, that now becomes your norm because your body has adapted. And that's now the new baseline. So does that make sense before we kind of go on? Because I just want to make sure that people understand that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely.
Perfect. And I think before we go into the management techniques, the next thing I want to mention is that all training is not equal. So people forget that different types of training will be like different stresses on the body, So an easy way, like going for a brisk walk is quite different than doing a CrossFit WOD, or so there's like different types of training would cause different amounts of stress. So that's where a lot of people you'd see that overtrain. When you look at what they're doing, it's like they're doing these crazy high intensity or really long duration sessions all the time. And it's like, yes, that's why, it's because it's not just because I train 4 days a week or 5 days. It's like what you do inside it really matters, because even everybody really knows this from the gym. Like leg days are usually harder to recover from, right? Because they're a lot more taxing on the body. Even when you push yourself with your upper body, there's just a hard leg day is like a different thing altogether. So yeah, it's understanding that. And then when we talk through the stress management techniques for the physical stress, I want to kind of put it into 3 tiers. So essentially foundations, the middle tier, and then the top tier. The reason why here is because people tend to focus on the wrong things and kind of call them big rocks versus small rocks. It's like a lot of people are focusing on the small rocks, the pebbles, and they're neglecting the big rocks, which actually do most of the work in terms of recovery from those physical stresses. So when we go through this, we have the kind of this bottom tier. Think of it like a pyramid. This bottom tier is your foundations. So when I say that, what do you guys feel the foundational things? I think we're all gonna like say the same thing first.
Nutrition?
Yeah. Sleep,
Yeah,
hydration, as
that's
Matt
true.
drinks water.
Yeah, that's 2 out. Yeah, I have 4 essentially foundational pieces, and you got them: sleep, nutrition, your training structure and volume, so the amount of training you do, and number 4 is rest.
Mm.
So this is where the way to look at this is, if you take like massage, right? You will never out massage sleep deprivation. You are never going to stretch your way out of overdoing too much total training. So that's why this pyramid is important. It's like, if you miss these things, if you're not actually taking rest, if you just don't take rest, you're never gonna foam roll your way out of that. So that's why it's really important to look at these tiers, like foundations of a house. Again, you can't put the walls up when there's no concrete there. You can't put the roof on when there's no walls. So it has to be a process. And this is where I think people, they miss the forest from the trees. So sleep is I would just say number 1. It's the first and most important thing. It's the most powerful recovery tool. When we look at physical stress, again, think of repairing our body. And that's where your body goes to work. It's like when you're asleep is when it starts to do all the good recovery happens. And we're not going to go too much into sleep, because we could do a whole,
Podcast.
I think 10 part podcast on it. But I want to mention one random thing that I actually just seen. I was like, this is definitely something people neglect, is actually having a high quality bed and mattress.
Who was it that said,
Even for myself.
was it, yeah, James Smitter, I think, or someone like that, was talking about the price of a mattress or buying a mattress, and he was like, it's literally something you have for life, and it's probably one of the most important things you could have. So why would you not, like, pay the extra amount when it's literally, you spent a third of your life in it.
Yeah, the 8 hours per day.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, somebody said that, a third of your life, and I'm like, and then you're looking at prices, you're like, I don't wanna spend that bit extra on it,
A good mattress is definitely, what, a couple of grand?
Yeah, I'd say so. Would it be? I'm not up to date on mattresses. Yeah. But
I know the orthopedic ones we
I
have at home, I think we're like 600 or 700, and they are
500.
insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is your calling. If you're watching this and you don't have a good bed and mattress, that's your next. Put it on the Santa's list.
We'll
Well,
get
I'll
a
actually
mattress
get it right
company.
away.
Sponsored by mattresses.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
you should
Some
try.
this is where the ad comes in.
Since I got this mattress, I've been sleeping 8 hours every night.
Number two is training structure and volume. I think this is a really important one that people kind of, again, probably just don't really understand. When I look at it, there's different things you can do here when you're under high amounts of physical stress or you're training a lot. First one we've talked about a few times, we've said like training deloads. So essentially what that is, it's a planned break from training to let the body recover, probably physically and mentally. And it's, again, like we talked about, that kind of accumulation of fatigue over time is happening. A lot of times happening in the background, we don't even realize it. So making sure that we put periods into our training kind of program where we do back off is really important, and it allows us to drop fatigue. It also can have other benefits on, like what Eve said, like on your joints and your mental motivation to train. There's lots of actual benefits in it, and often people kind of like, even myself, I don't really like deloads, and I kind of feel weird in a way when you like to train hard. It can be annoying to pull back, but it's also really important. And so, do you like deloads? Well, I don't.
I don't, because I'm the same as you, but I also like the benefits from them. Like I was even just thinking there when you were talking back like 2 years ago when we were doing the photo shoot prep, like pushing hard, and I was seeing like no results. But I'm kind of like Eve, where nothing happens, and then all of a sudden there'll be a huge drop in the scales. But I had a deload week, and it was the skiing holiday. So we were eating completely relaxed, a holiday that was completely relaxed, and I came back and it was like my whole body was like craving that rest and recovery, and the improvements from it were insane. So I don't really like them, but I know they're very beneficial.
Yeah, I'm the same. I hate deloads, but more than I hate deloads, I hate the week after deload. For me, I don't really like to deload, but obviously I do like having a bit of extra time or just, getting a bit more rest and recovery. But I really struggle the week after getting back into it. I actually find it really hard to get back into that routine again of pushing yourself. I find like if I take a deload, it's really essentially like nearly two
2 weeks.
weeks because it takes me 2 weeks to get back into it again. But
Yeah,
then like what the results you see from the deload in the following weeks, like your strength, your motivation to train, your energy levels, your just actual interest in being in there, um and obviously just the progress as well. And similar to you, Roisin, like when I need to deload, I'll just be holding so much inflammation. My body will be like swelled, and if I take a couple of days off training, my physique looks so much better.
yeah. And it's one of those things. I actually forgot to mention that in the symptoms. That's something also, is like decreased gym performance is something you'll notice if you're actually not getting stronger or finding it very hard to even maintain your strength. That is a sign usually of, again, fatigue masks fitness. So it's usually excessive fatigue. So that can be something else for people to look out for. Then yeah, I'm definitely with you. Deloads, like, usually it takes me 2 weeks and then I kind of feel the benefits of it. And I think for me it's like mentally, when I kind of like get to a deload, I nearly switch off. And then it's very hard to get like psyched up to push yourself that hard again. And it kind of like takes me a couple of weeks to kind of get into that mental frame nearly of like, going hell for leather in the gym.
You just need the
So
right
when we're talking
playlist.
about, yeah, when we're talking about training structure and volume as well, is this is where, when you're setting up your program and your training, you need to be smart with the amount that you do. So you want to basically, there's a sweet spot where you do enough that you can still recover from and still adapt and improve. Because if you do too much, you're basically going to have to deload way, like every 2 weeks because you're just going to be smashed, which is not what you want. You want to be able to kind of think of it like a slow and steady. Like you want to be able to, the progress happens not from 1 week of training. It's when you get a run of 6, 8, 12 weeks. So you want to be able to kind of continually train and recover, then over time throwing in these deloads every, if you have to use them every week, you're probably doing too much. And if you don't have to use them at all, you're probably not training hard enough. So there's this kind of sweet spot in between. Something else that you can do is when you're under high physical stress is a version of a deload, which is like reducing your volume, your frequency, or your intensity. Volume is the total amount of work you do. So imagine you do like 20 sets in a workout. You could reduce that down to 10. So you're only actually doing half the amount. Your frequency, again, if you're doing 5 days, you can go down to 3 to 2. Your intensity is how hard you actually push in that session. So, if you're training, lifting as heavy as you possibly can and going to failure, you pull back and you only lift like 70% of that weight. You keep a couple of reps in the tank because a lot of the fatigue that we accumulate it's those last couple of reps, those ones that where your mind, you don't want to do them, but you do them, and you might grunt, or again, you might think you're going to fail. They're the ones that actually generate progress, but they also cause a lot of fatigue that you have to recover from. And that if you've ever been pushed by me on like a leg press or a back squat machine, you know what that feels like after it.
I died on the pendulum today.
Yeah, I was like, that actually happened to Eve like 30 minutes ago.
30 minutes.
Other things you can do here that improve the physical stress is you can actually do like recovery training blocks. So like 4 or 5 weeks of kind of light training, or even sometimes even doing a different style of training can be quite good for the body in general. So for example, if you're doing a lot of, let's say, heavy strength work, that can be quite fatiguing on the nervous system. It actually can be quite fatiguing, like quite where you can get a lot of wear and tear in your joints. So if you go to this like maybe really high rep, lower weight, kind of lower rest period type of training, that's completely different. It's just like a different style, which can be good because you're giving the body different stresses to kind of then adapt and recover from. And another one is actually just being fitter. Having a high level of aerobic fitness will improve your recovery because you just recover faster. Like I was saying, when you put stress on the body's job is to bring it back down to baseline. The more efficient you are, the fitter you are, the more you'll be able to recover quicker. And that's something I've even personally noticed in the last year and a half since I took up running, which is funny because I kind of thought running might affect my weight training, but it did, but in a good way. I actually recovered faster since doing it. And also another couple of things is like, one is sometimes just training for fun. So a lot of us just train to make progress. We're trying to lift more every week. Having a few weeks of just like nearly pissing around, it can actually be beneficial. I wouldn't do it all year, but like 2 to 3 weeks every here and there can be quite good because it can even mentally give you. I've done this a couple of times where you don't track anything or that, and then what happens is after about 2 or 3 weeks, I'm like, I don't want to train like that anymore. I want to get back, like push myself or following a structured program. So it can actually be quite good to do that as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you with the running. When I started running, like initially, my body was like not recovering as well, or I was getting a lot more niggles, pains, hips, knees, and back. But then I think when I kind of got over the first like couple of months, I'm definitely recovering a lot better. And even I think as well, I do notice even able to push yourself more in sets. In those last couple of reps, you have more like gas in the tank.
Yeah, I would agree with that, with the running and having like a cardio, pushing yourself fitness wise rather than just strength wise I think is important.
Yeah. And it's getting there. There's like there was a certain period a few years ago where like it was like cardio and weights were like against each other. It was like a fight. So you either do cardio or you do weights. If you do weights, don't do cardio because it will kill your gains and all this stuff. So whereas now people are much more in tune with knowing you can actually do both, and you probably should for everything, for your health, for even if you want to build muscle, get fit, or whatever it is. They complement each other.
Yeah.
So that's the second kind of pillar. The third one is rest. And when I say rest, I literally mean just resting, like doing nothing
Doing
is
nothing.
really important. Yeah. Like it's funny how when I explain this, so many people can't do this. I mean, like you don't have to do yoga, Pilates, do nothing. Like sit on the couch with your dog and just like read a book. Like that is a lot of people just don't rest. Their version of resting is going, I'm not training today, so I'm going to turn the house upside down. I'm going to clear out the kids, the garage. I'm going to go do something for my grandmother and do everything, And it's like, no, you're just actually taking the physical stress and now you're just like putting it to
Mm.
something else instead of, it's funny the amount of people that I know that will struggle to like just sit down with a cup
But
of tea
it's,
or even just on the couch for a couple of hours. I'm probably one
yeah.
of them too.
A good sign as
But
well is like what I kind of say to people is if you're someone who can't rest, relax, sit down, then you're someone who's going to benefit it from it like so much more than anyone.
most
Yeah.
But it's because that this goes back to conditioning. Like we've been conditioned to think that rest is laziness, and that we're not allowed rest. And so and I've even noticed this because I've been trying to give like actually have like a whole day, like Sundays with no work, or even Saturdays. Some Saturdays being okay with not doing like an hour or two of work in the morning. And when I first started this, your body goes into like, what are you doing? You're missing out on all this. You should be doing more. And your mind, that's where your mind goes. So you automatically, it's almost uncomfortable to rest and do nothing because you have that voice in your head that's saying you're lazy, you should be doing more, you could be doing so much more with your time. So again, that's even like getting used to allowing yourself to rest is building a skill in itself.
Yeah,
It's
actually
funny.
being able to take rest is productive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Yeah, like
I
you
had
will
this.
get a
Go
lot
ahead.
more from yourself by, taking a rest. You're going to be a lot more, but you're going to be better at everything. Your job, your
Mm-hmm.
training, your even just being a better person to be around. I think it's so important. And I definitely, similar to you, Roisin, I read a book in the last couple of weeks. Was it called The Anxious Mind, Matt?
Yes, or
Very anxious mind. I know. It was how to calm your mind, but it was basically like saying that as well about like actually taking rest. But like if you have rest planned into your day or actually taking that break, and it's actually productive to do that. And often, like people won't allow themselves to rest. Like they're sitting down on the couch and they're like, I need to do this, I need to clean this, I need to do X, Y, and Z. Then you're not fully recovering. So, like, actually being able to stop and actually let yourself take a breather and seeing that this is actually beneficial, this is productive. And, another way of looking at it is just taking a step back. That's going to help you take two steps forward.
yeah, and we know like there's studies that mental stress affects physical recovery. So that's where if you can't actually, not even just physically, yes, not doing anything, but like even mentally, just calm in your mind and just being able to kind of like be blank in a way, just like stare at the wall and just enjoy doing that. Because it's funny,
Yeah,
one of one of the clients, I was chatting with them a couple of weeks ago, and I was laughing because I was like, in the like 18 months or 2 years, you've never sent me a voice note where you haven't been walking, and I mean when I say walking, I mean like 100-mile-an-hour walking. Can you sit
speed
down?
walking.
Just sit down and relax. Cup of tea on the couch, and she's like, even say, I can't do that. I'm like, you need to do that.
That's like our mother. I don't think I've ever seen mom sit down. She's
Yeah,
constantly. But even on the resting, I think an important, like you were saying there, Matt, as well, like also rest, don't consume. We don't need to be always consuming. Like go for a walk without the headphones. Don't be listening to music. Don't be listening to a podcast. And if you're not used to it, know that it's going to feel uncomfortable, but like sit with that. And even like journal about it. Why are you so anxious about resting? Because when you journal about that as well, you realize, why am I getting so anxious about doing nothing, like resting? Because we tell everybody else to rest when we see them stressed out.
and if you're a person that is like that, like Eve said, it's so weird. Like you will get more results and better results from less. I've seen this so many times. Like less is more for you if you're one of those people. Like I've had people come to me that are training 6 days a week, eating like low calories. You put them training 3 days a week and eating more, and they'll see results in like literally 6 to 8 weeks that they haven't seen for years of doing that training. Because again, they're just not able, they're not recovering, they're not adapting to it. They're actually just basically surviving the training they're doing. So yeah, if that relates to you, rest is so, and I'll even admit, even for me, I'm like, I wasn't treating it with enough respect up to the last couple of years. And that's number three. And number four, so this is good actually, because the other tiers, they don't matter as much. So we'll be going through them faster. Four is nutrition. So with nutrition, the number one thing is eating enough calories. And I think people get this wrong a lot, is they think they're like eating healthy, or they're like, oh, I'm getting protein in, like getting my protein in, whatever it is. But you have to actually eat enough to fuel the training. You know, if think of it like a car, if you want to go to a destination, you need the right amount of fuel. If you don't, you won't reach it. So it's the same thing with calories. And that's where so many people will underfuel. They just won't eat enough to, and especially the more like, the more physical stress you're going to put on yourself, the more training, the harder it's going to be, the more important the fuel is. Like if you're going for a leisurely walk, you don't really need any fuel. But if you're exerting yourself very hard, if you're on a hack squat or pendulum like me and Eve were, like that requires energy, and the energy comes through calories, and so it's really, really important that you are eating enough. And I just see it's something that a lot of people don't do or struggle with, or I suppose in a way it's the consistency as well. It's like they'll eat it a couple of days, but then they won't eat enough, or then they'll overconsume. Versus you want to be able to kind of consistently fuel yourself for essentially the goals you want to achieve.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one. And I think there's a lot out there that's just so confusing for a lot of people, because you will see people that will be doing crazy training and they're not eating enough food at all. Or these people like going to do a heavy workout and they've, the skipping of the first meal and all of this.
That's kind of leads in. First thing is like you have to eat enough, and that's like, it just can't reiterate it enough. It's kind of like if a top costs you 30 quid, if you go in with 20, it doesn't matter how shiny the 20 is, you're still short. Like you don't have the money, So it's like you need to make sure that you're eating enough, and then you need to make sure you're getting enough good quality food, and obviously macronutrients as well. So first we need to make sure we're getting the right level, and then when you look at macronutrients, we have protein, carbs, and fats, and they're all important. Protein for muscle repair and recovery, carbs for actual energy to go towards performance and recovery, and healthy fats for immune function, hormonal function. So they all play a role, and that's like calories, macros. I would say hydration and micronutrients are two that are also super important. And I think the big thing is you need all these that we're talking about, and because hydration, especially when you're training, because again you're going to be losing electrolytes, so, and also micronutrients. This is something that a lot of people, especially if you train hard, the harder you train, the more physical stress you're putting on your body, the more chances you are actually of becoming nutrient deficient, because your body is just burning through different nutrients, because again the requirements for this stress. There's a few common ones that I would see for people who train a lot, is magnesium. Iron is a big one, especially for people who do endurance or women. Um, Vitamin D and zinc are probably the other two that I see. Eve, would you notice, well, not notice, but would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Definitely see with a lot of women clients that have low iron levels. And yeah, even in the last couple of weeks, I think I've had probably at least 3 or 4 clients that have ended up having low iron levels. And the symptoms and signs of it are, it's similar to having that physical stress on your body where, you're low energy, constantly tired, dragging yourself out of bed in the morning, muscle weakness, starting to notice that you just are really kind of, everything is just really, really hard and a huge effort. I think they're like the main symptoms of it.
Yeah. It's something you actually experience it probably once or twice a year, do you?
Yeah. I haven't had it now since last July, but it happened to me last year after coming back from holidays. I was literally just for like 3 or 4 weeks, I'd say even longer, where I was just like not recovering, low energy, constantly tired. Like no matter how much I slept, I was just. And then got bloods done, and I found out iron was low. So it was actually a relief because it's something that it's so easy to fix. Just get your iron levels back up, and then you're good again.
Yeah. So that's our foundational tier done. We have those four. So remember that, like, as we go through these other things now, for everyone listening, don't get shiny object syndrome and think like you're gonna have to go
Gotta
buy
buy a
a
foam
hyperbaric
roller.
baric chamber, yeah, or do all this stuff. Remember, we should nearly cut the podcast now.
Yeah.
But sleep, training, your training structure, your rest, and your nutrition. They're going to be doing all the heavy lifting. This is where, as well, like we said about those nutrient deficiencies, this for supplementation can also be beneficial, but I would always go food first. And that's what we're kind of go into. So this middle tier, these are the things that I would think are important or we can add in once we have the foundations in place that will have a positive impact. Some of these are spending time in nature. So we actually know that spending time in nature decreases cortisol, so it brings stress down. So daily sunlight is another one. Basically, really really important for regulating your circadian rhythm. And if anybody has ever spent a lot of time not in sunlight, you don't feel very good. If you go like 2 or 3 days without any direct sunlight, you will notice that you're annoyed with everyone. Um, Having hobbies is actually, I think, a really beneficial one that a lot of us don't really realize outside of your training. So they actually did a study in 2016. 75% of the people who participated had reduced cortisol levels after engaging in artistic activities. And that was regardless of prior experience. So even if they hadn't done it before. So that's where you'll see people who, like, these might sound random, but like coloring books, painting, gardening, all these kind of things can be quite good for reducing your stress. And that's hobbies. Connecting with friends is another big one, which you mightn't even realize how important it is. And it can actually help with essentially your ability, your resilience to stress. There's something called stress buffering, which was actually back in the 80s. I think they done the original research on this. And it basically showed that like having strong social connections who provided you emotional support was able to help buffer that stress. So essentially it increased your resilience. If it kind of makes sense, if you think about it, if you're going through a physical stress, doing it with other people, having actual support create can actually help with your stress, your ability to handle it. And so that's another one. Then we have cold therapy and sauna, which I'm a big fan of, but again, don't get yourself, get a bed before you get a sauna. Remember that. Red light therapy, meditation and breath work is another one that I would say can definitely have benefits. Meal timing is actually one that could be beneficial as well. Once you have all your nutritional basics put in, having more of your carbs around training can help with, I think, with helping with your performance and recovery. So they actually done a study this year where 3 hours, a 3 hour delay in post exercise carb intake, so not eating for 3 hours post exercise, led to a 30% decrease in exercise performance and increased effort perception the next day. So basically, decreased performance the next day, and they felt like the training was harder. So that could be another thing that has a benefit over time. And then supplementing is the other thing, that like supplementation. But again, with that, I'm hesitant to talk about it because people will be like, "What supplements do I need to take?" And I'll be
Yeah.
like,
Give me the
"You're
quick
sleep, you're
fix.
sleeping for You're sleeping 4 hours a night. That's just, you need a new bed. That's what you need. But I do think they can all have benefits. Any ones stick out to you guys there?
I was just going to say, like, it's funny that all these studies are only coming out now because it's literally where we came from. Nature is so important, and creative outlets, because we are all creative beings. Like, think of, well, the way I always say with even clients is like, think of what you love to do as a child, coloring, gardening, whatever it was. If you can bring that into your life now, you're going to help ease stress so much. And then connections, yeah, because again, like Matt was saying, like, we can co-regulate. Like, if I have a relaxed nervous system and I'm around somebody who's not, I can help regulate their nervous system. And so if you're in an environment where that's the average, it's helping you co-regulate without you even realizing. So I think they're all very important things.
Yeah. And I was going to say it there. Yeah, I've even had this conversation with people, especially if you're someone who's quite serious and like you take your training serious. And so I've had athletes before where I'm like, do you know what I want you to do this week is go find your old friends that like have nothing to do with your sport and just go meet them and just chat, because you know when people get so wound up, like they're so involved in their sport, it can actually have a negative effect because you're just so in it that you can't just relax, you know, and everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are so trying to be optimal at everything that I'm like, the best thing you could do. I've even had this, I'm not recommending this, I've had said this to people before. I'm like, go have a few drinks. Because I'm like, you just need to actually go disconnect. And but that's only a once off, obviously, for that person. But again, because some people get so obsessed with things, again, just meeting people that they haven't seen in a while, who won't be talking about that sport or that activity, can be great. And it's like such a good, it's those things that you don't even realize how beneficial they are until
Yeah.
you have them.
But it's like we talked about on the last episode about when we were talking about the technologies, like the Whoop and all that. Like, people get so obsessed with trying to be, again, it's this perfectionism. You're trying to be perfect. You're trying to be the best. That alone is stressing you out so much because perfection doesn't exist. No, nothing is perfect. And people get so wound up trying to tick all the boxes.
Yeah. And a note that I kind of have here for myself, that especially with a lot of these, one is to know is like you don't have to do it all. Everything doesn't have to be ticked. It's not all like a checklist. But also what you can do that's beneficial is you can try and batch these together. So for example, you might go for a walk out in nature with your friend during sunlight, and there you're getting about 4 of them in one, So that's where you can actually mix these together, even go to the sauna with a friend, whatever it is. So you can, it seems sometimes like a lot, but you can actually be quite smart about it, that you can batch them together so that it can actually serve a lot of purposes, not just physical recovery. You get the social connection, you get the whatever, the daylight, the hobby, a lot of restorative activities going on.
Yeah, and I think it's all trial and error. Like, see what works for you, and allow yourself to trial and error, and know that, just because somebody else de-stresses with an ice bath doesn't mean that you need to. But like, allow yourself that trial and error of testing it out.
Yeah, like some people just don't like ice baths and don't enjoy them at all, and then other people are just obsessed.
We're all different. We're all unique.
So I think that's the second tier. The top tier then, which is your sprinkles on top, I would say is things like your foam rolling, massage, stretching, even active recovery. I wouldn't say any of these are bad, but I wouldn't be like telling everyone you have to do that all the time. It's just like, yeah, if you feel like you want to do a massage, do that. If you want to foam roll, you can do it. But again, if you're not sleeping, you're training too much, you're not looking after your nutrition, your hydration, all those, you're probably pointless doing them. But again, like we said here, I still wouldn't fear people to go, oh, these are all useless. Like, there's no point. Because like we said, some people might actually just love getting a massage. It's a great way to disconnect, to get an hour off their phone, and they feel fantastic. And there could be studies to come out for the next 10 years saying there's no benefit. But that man clearly has a benefit. So it's like, I'm not saying don't do any of these, but all I'm saying is like, if you're limited on time and what to do, follow the step by step, get your priorities in, and then look at, okay, these are the things I like. to do. Because even for myself, it's definitely something I want to even maybe once a month is like get a massage, because I do like the whole just going and doing it. You know, the whole practice of booking it in, and even me and Eve got one went 2 weeks ago, and it was like if I didn't book it, I wouldn't have went. And then
Yeah.
I was glad after it that I'd done it for myself.
But I would have to kind of disagree there with the whole stretching and mobility. I think that they are obviously sleep and all that is way more important, but I think it is very important to have that time where you do stretch and you do a bit of mobility. And like massages, it's kind of like you're respecting your body for all the heavy lifting it's doing. You're now respecting it and giving it, you know, massaging it. And I know for me, I've taken my mobility and my stretching up a level in the last year, I'd say, and the benefits have been incredible. I've noticed because I don't have as many. Like my hip was fucked for the longest time, and now I've got really good hip flexors and mobility there.
Yeah, and that's it. Like we're saying, it's kind of those things have definitely worked kind of positive effect for you, but it's also then not neglecting the big rocks
Oh yeah,
before, because a lot of people do that with recovery. It's like, oh, I need to stretch more to recover. It's like if you overtrain,
Stretching is something else.
yeah, it's stretching is it will make you feel you will loosen the muscle, but the muscle is so tight because you are putting so much stress on it that it then is tightening up, you know. So it's like it's understanding the different tools in the toolbox and what to kind of use, you know. And yeah, I think the big key is just takeaways for people is to really just understand the symptoms, is to if you can kind of get more aware of your body, how it's feeling, and even that list, look at them, and that's why reflection is important. And go, okay, like what am I seeing? You know, there's a reason why if you're really sore or you're not recovering, low motivation to train, and then also look at the things you are doing. So it's being aware of how your body is actually feeling, the messages it's telling you, and then also look at okay, am I covering my basics with for recovery, you know, and then it's like, okay, is there other things I can add on that if I'm already doing the best? And so I think they're the kind of points that I want to kind of get across today. Anything else before we finish up?
No, I think that's it. Just listening to your body.
Perfect. We got like a full episode. Thought with three of us, we'd have nothing to talk about. But
Yeah.
we're always that. I don't think that's ever a problem. So we have a random question to finish. I like this one actually. If you were handed $500 at this moment, how would you spend it?
$500.
I'd buy a new mattress.
I'd buy half an ice bath.
Oh, you get one of those big ones. I don't know. I would probably book flights. I need to book a few flights for this year.
I was thinking of booking flights, and when it first came up, I was like, probably would flights.
Yeah, I'd
Always
book
sounds
flights
good.
to Italy. Yeah.
Nice. So now we just need to manifest $500.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us. That was actually an easy one this week. Thank you for joining us this week. Hopefully, you got some value from it. And yeah, we will see you all in the next episode.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Future Fitness Lifestyle. If you found value in today's conversation, do me a favour. Leave a review, share it with a friend, or tag me on social media. Every share and review allows us to reach more people and bring you even more great content. Stay tuned for weekly episodes packed with insights to help you optimize your health, fitness, and mindset. And if you're ready to take things to the next level and join the MC Future Fitness community, click the link in the description, fill in the application, and let's get started. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, consistency beats perfection.